For this next example, we're going to solve an inequality graphically this time. And it's going to have some similar elements to the last one, but overall we're going to cut out some of the process by using our graphing calculator. So you'll notice the inequality that I want to solve here. 12x squared minus 25x plus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. So I want to solve this one. And to do that, I'm going to first of all graph it. So you'll notice that I have it entered in for y1. I have just the left-hand side in there because I want to see where this is greater than or equal to 0. Once we see the graph, I'll tell you where this greater than or equal to 0 part comes into play. So I'm going to graph it. Now, where the greater than or equal to 0 comes into play is based on where 0 is. So just to make this a little simpler, I'm going to draw a quick sketch of my graph so that you can see a little bit closer up what this is going to look like. So I'm going to draw a sketch of this graph. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my graph because I want to see a bit better view of this. Okay, so there's my view. I'm going to draw a real rough sketch of this. Here's my graph. And so what we've got is a graph where we want to know what's going to be greater than or equal to 0. Now, greater than or equal to 0 has to do with this line, because this is our line, y equals 0. If something is above that line, then it's greater than. If something is below that line, then it is less than. And if it's right on that line, it's equal to. We're looking for whatever is greater than or equal to in this case. And so what I'm going to do is just color in the part that applies to here. That's going to apply to, well, first of all, right on the line. Those are our zeros. That's where it's equal to 0. And then above it is going to be where it's greater than. So these green sections that I have on my graph indicate solutions to our inequality. Now, we want to put this in terms of some numbers, and so we're going to let the calculator help us out a little bit there. We're going to find out what those points actually are at the intersections. And so I'm going to go back to my calc menu by second trace. I'm going to figure out the 0. So this is that left boundary, right boundary stuff. I'm going to get to the left of it, hit enter, get to the right of my 0, hit enter, hover over it, and it looks like we've got 0.750. I'm going to label this point then as, I'm going to go fractions on this one. I'm going to go 3/4 0. That's where I'm at this point right here. The other one is, well, it can be found easily by doing the same thing. Find the 0. We're just going to go over to this side instead. Left boundary, right boundary, and a guess. This one's 1.3 repeating. That's 1 1/3. That's the same thing as 4/3. So I'm just going to use the fraction here. And those are now my values. So I can put my calculator away. I've got a good sketch of it, and now I just need to interpret this graph where it is greater than or equal to 0. Now remember that interval notation is always going left to right. So when I go left to right, I'm looking at x values. So you'll notice that we have zeros here. That's just because that's where it's crossing the line. So what I'm going to do in order to make this a little easier to interpret, I'm just going to scribble out the y value because the x values are what's important. If I'm going left to right, even though I know this is going up, but there are values over here on the left somewhere. And as I come in from left to right, then if I get over here, then I'm going towards this point as I'm coming in from the left. So what that means to me is that my solution is going from the left to the right. From the left is -infinity, and it keeps going over until it gets to this x value, which is at 3/4. And since this has an equal to bar on it, we're going to make this a square bracket. Then it starts back up again. It dips below. We don't want that stuff, but it starts back up right here at 4/3 and then keeps going to the right after that. So I start with 4/3 and then go to infinity on this side. This will be my solution that I found graphically. What I would expect to see in your problem is that you have a quick sketch and some labels on there so you know, so that I know that you're able to identify where these start and stop.